What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in the last video, I was working on the Magnum through the wiring harness in it. Couldn't really figure out why the key fob was not being detected. And finally it hit me. I forgot to plug in a sensor. So there's two sensors. I still need to drill out the rivets on the Challenger, but the one that works for the fob inside the car, which I thought it was a bunch of other things, but really it is this. So this guy right here, all the way in the back, it just clips in. There is also one that is under the bumper. It's riveted. So this is the antenna. I thought a bunch of other things were the antennas. So the mirror up there, I'm not exactly sure if it has anything to do with it, but the thing next to it is a rain sensor. I thought it was actually the antenna for the fob, but plug this guy in. Now we have the fob right here, and we can key on. Look at that. Now that I have the whole key fob situation figured out, I'm going to pretty much just wire in the front doors. I'll worry about the rear doors eventually. Then I will wire in all of the other stuff, and I can wire in pretty much everything in the back bumper. I'll have to pull the back bumper. That'll help me do the exhaust as well. Then I could do the parking sensors, all that stuff in the back. So we have quite a bit of wiring to do today. I'll also throw the seats in. So the seats are in the car, and I think everything should go pretty quickly. Once I get the drive shaft in, I can throw the cats on, throw the exhaust on once I have the bumper off. Just kind of work my way through the car. I think once that's all done, once I get the brake lines, I'll be able to, technically this car should drive by the end of the day. But without the brake lines, I can't take it on its maiden voyage. So I could pull it out, use the parking brake to stop me, but it's pretty exciting. So I'm pretty excited that the car is this far. I really do like how the Challenger interior looks in here. I have the Magnum on the lift. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to put the drive shaft in, as well as connect some stuff underneath the car, and as well as do the exhaust. So now, pretty much what I'm doing is, this is as high as the jack stands go. Almost everything is now finished under the Magnum. The only thing that's left to do, if I would have had a Charger exhaust, I wouldn't have had to do anything, but I just need to extend the exhaust about a couple inches, maybe let's say 4 inches. I've been going 4 inches the whole time, but we do have the dual active exhaust bolted up to the Magnum. So you need the rear subframe out of a Charger or Challenger to get it to bolt up, because there are hangers that it sits on, but on the back, everything is the same. So I need to actually bolt these tips all the way on, because they are like they're like a slip fit, and I did take them off. Once I do that, I could cut the holes in the bumper just so everything fits really nice, looks really good, and then we'll be done with the whole exhaust situation and done with everything under the car. So the drive shaft bolted up perfectly, actually bolted up way better than I thought it was going to bolt up, and all the heat shielding, all that stuff went right in. Going through some of the hatch wiring on the Magnum, and it seems like a lot of the modules are a little bit different. I really don't want to have to integrate the older modules into the newer system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of retrofit some of the stuff. This is the rear hatch latch, and you can see this one right here is for the Magnum. You can see the larger motor, and this one is for the Challenger. You can see the smaller motor. Obviously, everything is a little bit smaller. This is a 3-pin. The Magnum one is a 4-pin. I don't think I should have any issues really retrofitting it. So I want to use all the new modules and electronics, and I think I should be able to. So another thing that's different that I ran into is the radio antenna. This is the little antenna right here, the module, but it goes into this right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this right here to this module and connect it to the ceiling like it would be in the Challenger. And then I'm going to extend this wire right here is for the antenna. You can kind of see it, this black wire for the antenna. And I'm going to just run it into the hatch, which it really won't run that far. It will just run through the sheathing right here, and right over here you can see the clip from the Magnum antenna. This is the antenna right here for the Magnum, and it'll just plug in. So I'll use that connector, extend the wire a little bit, and I think we'll be okay doing that. There is also a few differences. I need to remove the windshield wiper. So there's a rear wiper. I hate rear wipers. I'm going to pretty much delete it. Actually, I already did delete it, but I'm going to delete the wiring for it as well. And then I need to figure out if I could use the wiring right here is for the door handle. So when you come up to the car, just like on the Challenger, it has a little button. That's that little button right there. And I put in the keyless entry module right here. All I did was use some riv nuts and some bolts. On the Challengers, these are pop riveted, so you have to drill the pop rivets out if you're going to take one of these off. And you know, riv nuts are the best thing ever. I also drilled holes so the harness connects like factory. I mean, even though this car didn't come with a harness back here like that, but I think we're off to a good start. So wiring is just going to kind of be tedious and time consuming, but I think at the end of this, everything should work as it did in the Challenger. One thing I really want to do now, I'm going to drop the headliner down. I just pulled all the liners out of the back hatch, which I really do not like that this is white. So what I'm going to probably do is I'm going to paint the gray stuff black, and I may wrap all the white stuff in the headliner in some black Alcantara, but I'm not exactly sure yet. So I'll just have to kind of play that by ear, and I need to order all the stuff to do it, which I'm not really capable of doing it. I tried wrapping the 3000 GT headliner, and it was a bad experience. So I'll probably just find somebody that can actually wrap it for me and go from there, just so I don't have to waste a bunch of Alcantara. I already wasted like quite a bit trying to do the 3000 GT headliner. The headliner is now removed from the Magnum. I pulled it down so I could see what I'm working with in the car. I know the wiring is different, but also I wanted to pull this antenna right here, and I have to make that hole a square. So on the Challenger, that hole is actually kind of a square shape instead of round, and it doesn't really have a pin. So what I'm gonna do tomorrow is use my Dremel, and I will make a template off the Challenger outside with an X-Acto knife, stick it on there, and then just Dremel it out, because you can definitely see that is a circle and it just needs to be a square. It's probably very, very close. It just needs some corners put into it. So we'll do that tomorrow. I'm glad the headliner is down. It seems like there isn't very much wiring in terms of stuff in the headliner or on the roof. So that is really good. Another thing is the back here, the harness that goes to the hatch is pretty much very accessible. What I'm gonna have to do is on the Challenger, the wiring harness actually ran up the side right there. So I'm gonna do the same thing, just run it up the side up here, and then I'll have everything go from here into the hatch, which it will be a lot better than it going all the way down there. Another thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to add the courtesy lights that this headliner doesn't have. So I'll have the harness, I'll just drill them out and put them in as well. And then there isn't any handles up here on the Magnum. There's no safety handles up front. There's just ones in the rear. So I'm gonna use the ones from the rear of the front of the Challenger, because they're black, into the rear of the Magnum, and they should just bolt in. I was able to integrate the Challenger parking / collision avoidance sensors into the Magnum bumper. All I did, you guys saw, was pop the tabs off the Challenger bumper. Then I found a spot on the Magnum bumper, which I made sure the spacing in the sensors was all the same distance. So this one's 19.5 from center, and these ones on the sides are 17 inches each. So make sure, I'm not sure if it matters, but make sure to keep them the same distance, just in case it does make a difference. So this one right here, I didn't have the little grommet. There's a little rubber grommet that goes around the parking sensor. And to get the hole the correct size, I used 11/16 bit. And I decided to go with this since I was going through plastic. It was kind of like wood. I'll put the link in the description for this bit. It worked out very well. So this one, you can see the rubber grommets there and the parking sensors there. I did run out of panel bond, so tomorrow I will have to finish panel bonding the sensor brackets onto this Magnum bumper. I'm also going to panel bond the Challenger the license plate light into the Magnum bumper as well. The Magnum bumper has one that screws. It's like a halogen bulb. It's just not gonna work. So I'm going to just cut the piece out of the Challenger bumper. I'll panel bond that when I panel bond the last of the sensor brackets. And then I'll have to paint this bumper anyway. It has some stuff here and there. It's not the greatest, but after I get the car repainted, you know, everything will be good to go there. So really all I need to do, which I'll do all this tomorrow, I need to cut the exhaust holes larger, and then once everything is dry, I can actually fit the bumper, make sure everything's gonna be good to go. I've already attached all the wiring, and then this harness right here goes into this crash support. And what I'm gonna do is just remove the original harness, but I also need to grab some of the plugs off this original harness, because I need to extend the wires for the brake lights, running lights, stuff like that outside of the car to this harness, so it'll plug into the Magnum lights, because the Magnum doesn't have the harness inside, so the connectors aren't inside, they're on the outside. I'm gonna pull the lights and make sure Not exactly sure because I've never pulled one of those lights to see what's behind it. If I can make the connectors go inside the car, it will help me out a lot. Also, something else I did was I added the antenna. So really all you have to do is I made a template off the Challenger, made sure everything was lined up. So you don't want this thing to be crooked. I have it from each corner on the back of the fin. It is 8 inches from this seam right here. And you just have to turn a circle into a square. So it's not very much material you're getting rid of, but you have to be very careful not to get rid of too much, or it will want to turn and stuff. You can see this is really solid, just like in the Challenger. So harness is now removed from the Magnum hatch. What I need to do now is figure out how to integrate the Challenger trunk harness into the Magnum hatch harness. There are a few differences, so I need to figure out how I'm going to go about making the button in the hatch work with the Challenger harness. It shouldn't be too difficult, but I want the features so I could pop the hatch from the hatch, or I could pop the hatch from the remote, or I could pop the hatch from the dash. So it's just one of those things. I'm gonna have to make it work, and that's all in wiring. Also, on the Challenger, the reverse lights are on the trunk. In the Magnum, the reverse lights are on the tail lights. So I'm gonna have to pull the wires from the trunk harness and run them to the tail light harness, which I need to feed the wires from the normal tail light harness, which is inside the car in the Challenger, through this plug, because on the Magnum, the harness plugs are on the outside. So that's one difference that I'm gonna have to compensate for, as well as wire some other stuff in. I need to drill a hole over there so I could run the evap plug out. This side already had the hole in it, so I could run the wires out for the charcoal canister and some other stuff. The only reason I haven't tidied the wiring harness up yet is because I need to move wires around, run the reverse light wire all the way back here. So there's no reason to put the back seat in and the trunk trim, because I need to extend these wires. Also, I need to make the speaker wires go to the speakers. I took the door speakers out of the Challenger doors, and I'm using them in the back of the Magnum. The Magnum front speakers are actually Alpine Type S's. So now these are Alpine rears, Alpine Type S's in the fronts, and we have all 6x9s. So it should sound pretty good, as well as a few other things that I did. I did end up drilling the hole, as you guys saw up here, for the exhaust. So it has the active exhaust, and the ABS sensors has to go through the floor right there. The plug hole was just a plug. It had a rubber plug in it, but it was a square. I needed to make it round. It was kind of difficult. The Dremel sanding discs don't last very long, so I went through quite a bit of them, but I had enough of them to get the job done. as well as getting all the battery and all that stuff mounted right there. So I need to mount a module over there, and that should be it for that. But other than that, everything seems to work. Like I showed you guys before, I put riv nuts here. This is a key fob antenna, and there also is one right there. And then I'm gonna have to mount one right there and one right there, kind of by the back of the rear doors, or I may put them kind of in the B pillars. I'm not exactly sure yet, but I think this is a pretty good place to stop on the video, just because the fact that the wiring is gonna be a lot. It's gonna probably be the boringest thing in the car. And I also cut the hole for the antenna, so you wanna make sure that's straight, but yeah, everything is good with that. That's mounted. So we have a lot of the stuff out of the Challenger already bolted into the car, and it's coming out really nice. So the one thing I did really like that came out a lot better than I was expecting was, I haven't cut the exhaust holes yet, but the parking sensors slash collision avoidance sensors, they worked perfectly. I still need a panel bond them. That's why the bumper's not on, and I didn't worry about cutting the hole for the exhaust tips, but they look really good and they're nice and flush. I mean, it's super simple. You just pop off the ones off the original bumper, drill the holes to the correct size, and panel bond them onto the new bumper. And any bumper can have parking sensors or collision avoidance sensors or what be it. So you want to make sure they're evenly spaced. You want to make sure they're spaced like they are on the car that you got them off of, and you want to make sure that they're not too high or too low. I just measured everything, measured twice, cut once, you'll be good to go. So I need to do a few things to this thing tomorrow as well. I want to actually, like I said, get the license plate LED light from the Challenger. I need to cut this piece out, panel bond the new one in. Shouldn't be too difficult. For the exhaust holes, I may cut the piece off the Challenger lip and panel bond that in. Not exactly sure yet. We're gonna see how it looks after I cut it and test fit the bumper on, but everything seems to work extremely well. The wiring harnesses all pretty much fit in the car. Relatively easy. There is a few things you have to do here and there, but nothing that is really that big of a deal. So I'm really glad that the drive shaft's in, the exhaust is on, and all of that stuff is getting closer and closer. Once we get the brake lines, we can actually drive this thing for the first time. They should be here sometime next week, I'm guessing. But if you like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, share these videos with your friends, thumbs up, throw a comment below, and as always, see you guys next time.